Let's talk about the differences, or what non-believers call discrepancies, used to discredit Paul in Acts chapters 9, 22, and 26. So these slight differences actually tell a story, just like the slight differences in the Gospels, i.e. The color of the robes that were put on Jesus, right? The scarlet robe, the purple robe, and the glorious robe, right? They all tell a story. As well as how Jesus goes from being portrayed or called the Son of Man, and then the Son of God, and then later to God, right? The great I am. Why? Because this is the revelation, right? The uncovering, the unveiling. This is glory to glory, right? But let's get into Acts. So in Acts chapter 9, on the road to Damascus, when Paul had his encounter with Jesus in verse 3, he saw a light, right? But in Acts 22, verse 6, it says he saw a great light. And then in Acts 26, verses 13, it says he saw a light like the sun. And these are all the same account, right? In Acts chapter 9, verses 7, the men with him saw no man, but they heard a voice. In Acts 22, verses 9, they saw the light, but they heard no voice. And in Acts 9, verses 9, Paul was blinded for 3 days, right? And in Acts 22, verses 11, says he was blinded for the glory of that light. Then in Acts 9, verses 18, the scales fell from his eyes, and he regained his sight and was baptized. And in verse 19, he receives meat, right? And was strengthened. Now, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, right? Romans 10:17. Now, Paul heard the voice and saw the light in all three accounts, but those with him heard in Acts 9, but didn't see. And they saw in Acts 22, but they did not hear. Why? Matthew chapter 13, verses 13 says, "Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand." So see, Paul had faith and believed. So those scales that fell off his eyes was his spiritual blindness. And that meat that he received that strengthened him was the gospel. And all of this is summed up in Acts verses 26, verses 18. In Acts chapter 26, verses 18. Jesus telling Paul, right, he's sending him to the Gentiles to open their eyes, to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. So we see a transformation that took place with Paul, right? In 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 18. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding, as in a mirror, the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. So we see this again with the different robes, right, in the Gospels, and the titles given to Jesus, and the descriptions of lights, right, that Paul saw. Now, I want to give you a visual, but before I do, let's read Romans 1, verses 20, as not to ruffle the religious feathers, right? "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." So Paul saw a light in Acts 9. And in Acts 22, he said it was a great light. And in Acts 26, he said it is a light like the sun. Okay, so this can be seen right now in 3 celestial bodies, right? The first being Jupiter, a light, okay? The light, right? Which can be seen just over the head of Cetus at about 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, right? And the second being Venus, right? A great light, which can be seen rising from the east in the wee hours of the morning. And then finally, a light like the sun, right? The sunrise. Now hear me out. And yes, I'm using symbolism, which per Romans 1:20 tells a grander story, right? I'm just giving you a visual. So this is also going to explain why images, statues, and paintings of old have the sun behind Jesus' head. It is not because they worship the sun, right? So Hallel, or Lucifer, is called the morning star, but then Jesus is called the morning star. Well, Jesus is the sun, right? Only through the sun can you have everlasting life. Okay, well, we see this very story with the sun, like the sunlight, the celestial body. Trees and vegetation need sunlight to grow. Without trees, we'd have no oxygen. And without vegetation, we'd have no food. Therefore, without sunlight, we'd have no life, right? The sun also makes me think of the angel that was flying overhead with the everlasting gospel, right? What is the everlasting gospel if not that, Jesus? Come on, you guys. So, but do Jupiter or Venus provide that source of life-giving light? No, right? Therefore, making the sun the true morning star. And the glory of the sun is greater than that of Venus, which is why you can't see it. Venus, you can't see it after the sunrise, right? Even though it is there. Like Venus is out during the daytime. Now the sun, or Jesus, is crowned, right? And the sun also has a corona, it means crown, right? Now, as the sun rises, Jupiter and Venus fall or set, right? Like Nahum chapter 3, verses 17. Your princes are like grasshoppers, your scribes like clouds of locusts, settling on the fences in a day of cold. But when the sun arises, they fly away, and no one knows where they are. With that being said, I'd also like to mention that in Revelation chapter 8 and 9, a great star and a star fall from heaven, right? Now we know that that's actually symbolic of a greater meaning, but to give a visual. So whether that's any correlation or not, I will let you decide. But may the day star arise in your hearts with healing in his wings, per Malachi chapter 4, verses 2. So that you may shine like the sun in the kingdom of your Father, per Matthew chapter 13, verses 43.